You have lifted us out of despair, unto you I cry. Eternal Lord, wonders are made. Forever we say, oh Lord my God, oh how excellent it is to trust in you, my rock. You have lifted us out of despair, unto you I cry. Eternal wonders are made. Forever we sing.
Good morning and happy Thursday, Revealing Truth Ministries. Welcome to the Stability Studio for this Thursday's Deeper Dive session. We are excited and live here in the Stability Studio. You know, the Deeper Dive gives us the opportunity to attend to the things that God has said to us, because we are determined to be people who are most blessed. And we're glad that you are with us in the virtual building. Drop something in the chat so that we know who you are. Share the stream with those that you're connected to. And again, thank you for joining us. Pastor Brian is in the building today. The third part of Sunday's triple header.
Yes, sir.
If you didn't get the opportunity, if you haven't yet checked out Sunday's message, go back. It was a treat, a special moment. You know, you want to go back in and listen to that, and then listen to Tuesday's Deeper Dive as well as this one, so that you be caught up, if I could say, caught up with all that's taking place this week. And Pastor Brian.
Yes, sir.
Wow. Sunday, Pastor Hertion came and kicked us off, shared a testimony, and really stirred us up. And it stirred Pastor Deborah up even more. And she came and shared a message with us. And then you were stirred up even more and came and shared with us from a message title. I guess so. Message title. But if you say so, I gotta say it like how you would say it.
Yeah.
Like if you hear God say something, it's like, or I can hear Peter saying it to Jesus, right? On the shore, it's like, but if you say so, right? Like, I know what I've tried. I know where I've been. I know I got some past history, past experience, considering all that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, considering who I'm believing you to be, if you say so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's start there. You know, we're lovers of titles, Pastor Brian. So give us some background, more background on that title. But if you say so.
Yeah. If you say so, I can't say it's my title as much as that was his response, and so it stuck out to me. And I'll put this plug right. That's kind of we're gonna have our SOS coming, and we're gonna talk about spiritual growth and really talk about how we dive into the Word, and that's kind of a glimpse of how I study. I allow the Holy Spirit to kind of highlight things to me, and every time there may be something different that's highlighted, from a passage or whatever. And so those become the moments where I say, well, I stop and ask God, like, why are you highlighting this to me? And so among that whole passage, that is what was highlighted to me. But if you say so.
Right.
And really it happened, throwing it back to a little family conference moment, right? I did some garden work over the weekend, just tending to my soil. And while I was in the garden, God just said this, and I can say, this came up in the last SOS. They're like, well, what made you go to that passage, or what made you go here? What started that journey? And what I can say is it's always in a place of absolute peace. Right, it's when my mind is the calmest that God will just speak something, and then from that point he's really bringing back to remembrance as the Holy Spirit does. And so I was tending to my soil, right, in the garden, and I just heard the Holy Spirit a lot of days just said, the nets are about to break. You know, the nets are about to break. And I would say because of just time in the word, you know, I knew that wasn't a random thing. I'm like, no, that's an account, you know, in the Bible. And so you know, not immediately, I took out my phone, which I do all the time. I have so many notes in my phone. I took out my phone and I just wrote down the nets are about to break, you know. And in that moment, I just started to just meditate. That God, what do you mean? You know, I know they were talking, and we see physical nets, and but you know, I know it's bigger than that.
Yeah.
And so, talk to me about these nets. And
Before you share what came out of that, you asking that question, I want to just pull out some fundamental things that were already mentioned. That, you know, I know many of our listeners, they have their way of doing this, and maybe some are still looking for their way to capture those thoughts in a different way, though, right?
Yeah.
You're in the garden, you're in your garden tending to your soil, and you are, you know, I imagine this is common practice of having your ears open. You're in tune to, you know, God, what if you want to say something, God, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
You know, your boy's here. But the practice that makes that most meaningful is that you're already used to capturing it somewhere.
Yeah.
And I just wonder how many times God shares things with us, with people, and you're not in a position to capture it. So you end up forgetting it. I mean, it may have been good in that moment, but beyond that moment, you haven't created a practice that allows you to tend to it.
Yeah, you know, and we'll talk about this more in the SOS. But you know how I feel about us. Listen, you know, we get in church, and I always use this moment because I see it as a point of agreement. And my thing is, well, how you living that, right? You go to any church, you can just stand up on stage and be like, and man doesn't live by bread alone, but every word that proceeds out the mouth of God. Everybody's like, yes, right. Whole church goes wild, right? You know, of course, here, which you know, part of our practice has been when we attend to what God has revealed, we are what most blessed, right? And so now that is what we value. What do you do with what you value?
Yeah.
Right. That becomes so. Are you to me, if you're saying I live by every word that proceeds out the mouth of God, seems like you would pause whatever you're doing to capture any word He gave you.
That's good. Right.
You know, you can't. I just see major conflict if you're saying that's what you believe, and then when it happens, you treat it as though it's not that valuable. I mean, I you know, it's, you know, I think about it. I compare it to this, right? You know, this is funny to me, but I do this. Maybe other people don't, but every once in a while you'll call and, you know, you'll pay a bill, right? And they'll ask you if you want the confirmation number, right? And some people say, I'm okay. Some people say no. But anybody who's had to contest a payment that they paid, they always say, yes, give me a moment so I can write it down. Well, if you take it that serious, right, if you've ever forgotten something God has said to you, then you'll start to treat what He says different.
That's right.
And so for me, you know, there's so many categories from which God speaks to my life from, right? Not only as a person, but as a father, as a pastor. Then as a pastor, the way our vision functions, there's many vehicles to it. So, you know, there's so much that God could be depositing that my prayer is always, God, make it simple. Give me one thing that can apply to all of it, right? You know, but at the same time, you know, it means that I can't afford, and I don't think anybody can afford, right? If you're, especially if, you know, there's certain things that we say, and I'm gonna just throw out some stuff that I would say, yeah, you're in a category no one can not afford to. But if you consider yourself an entrepreneur, I'm gonna say you definitely cannot afford to not categorize and capture what God says, because anything God says could apply to the multiple things that you say you've been called to pursue. You know, you want to live a multifaceted life, but you want to have a blurred relationship with God, right? And so you can't have both. right? If you're gonna live this multifaceted life and you're gonna chase all these, I shouldn't say chase because I think it's stronger than that. I see myself as that. If you're gonna pursue, chase, track down, we women's conference, right? But so I can say chase. So if you're going to pursue all of these different things as God's telling you to do, what on the other side of your life with Him says that you can do it and do it well? And so for me, I can't afford not to stop and write it down.
That's right.
Right. I know that's fit the
that's
went all the way around the wheel, but yeah. So in that moment, I stopped. Like I stopped, and stopping isn't convenient because I'm in my garden, and so I can't write on my phone with my gloves on, and so I have to stop. Take my gloves off, right? Clean my hands because touching my phone, gotta get out my pocket.
Right.
Like it's literally a moment of, But before I've been like, oh man, when I take a break, I'll write it down.
Yep.
And then next thing you know, he done said 5 more things, and
Right.
now I'm trying to
Trying to get it back.
so I'm like bump it, right?
Right.
Just cause the pause. If I live off of every word that proceeds from his mouth, then I got to stop.
That's
and
good.
so that has just become my practice, right?
That's good. That's good. Good fundamental. Yes. So you're there. God says the nets are about to break.
Yeah. And so he says that, and like I said, of course, I write that down, and then I start to meditate on that word. And God, what do you mean? The nets are about to break, and God just starts showing me, it's like, yeah, there's about to be physical evidence to what took place spiritually in your life. That's number one. Those nets represent a breaking in the spirit that they got the witness in the natural, and that means to me that there's a trigger, right? There's a trigger, and so this is just me just going through what I do, right? We'll go through the SOS even further. That's my 4th drop, right?
That's good.
But it just starts to get deeper, and now I wasn't scheduled to teach that Sunday, but also knowing that that's a part of one of my assignments. First thing I asked God is like, is this a word you want me to share with the church? And in that moment, actually, I felt a yes. And so but I'm just thinking, man, I'll just put it in a message that I'm have coming up, right? And but then of course, even though the message is coming up, that's I don't know if I'll do it in SOS, I'll show it, right? But it's interesting, but I'll show it in SOS. I think that'd be the best place to kind of show how that works in my life, right? It's like, okay, this word is for me. Okay, man, this word is for the church. And so I have time dedicated every day to all these different categories. And so I started to just study, and Pastor Deborah started saying some things and as she was teaching, and I just knew right then, like, no, this is for now. And, I was like getting stirred up, right? Just getting stirred up. And, I was waiting for her to kind of signal, but then I realized that's actually opposite to what she's even saying. Like, to even wait, right? I was like, normally she'll be like, you got something you want to say? And if she would have said, I was literally sitting in my chair like, oh, if she says that, then I'm definitely going to get up. And so I'm sitting there like, all right, doesn't seem like she's going to say it. And God's like, so you're just going to sit here?
Right.
Like, that's opposite of the literal word,
right,
like that you were sharing. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to get up. And so, next thing I look up, I'm standing in the middle of the stage. But she said so many things that were, and then there's the moment, right? Oh my God. Like, I've also lived, like, man, you know how hard it is to cultivate an atmosphere, right? Skip that, right? You know how hard it is to cultivate the soil in order to receive the seed. I'm saying that's just to stay in line with what we're saying in the family conference. And man,
Yeah.
you may be, it may take a while to get the soil
Right.
to be able to sow the one seed.
Yeah.
And so, I'm like, man, knowing that,
Mm-hmm.
sitting in this moment, and so many things are coming together.
That's good.
I'm like, okay, it took a Pastor Hertion, a Pastor Deborah to cultivate the soil in order for this seed to be sown. I've done this before. If I don't say this now,
That's right.
I may have to come back and teach for 30 minutes to say this one thing that honestly takes 3 minutes.
Right.
But it will take a whole message to get to that word. And I've also shared with the church before, like,
Right.
hey, like I pray that we get to this one point. It's going to take 30 minutes to get there, but if we get there, we can share this one word. And what is that? Cultivating the soil.
Right.
And so knowing all of this, what are you going to do with what you know, right? I'm sitting there like, all right, I could either hold this, wait till next Sunday, and it take 45 minutes to get to the same spot, or I could recognize that the soil has been cultivated and it could just put the seed in there, right? And I were to say, right, I want to say some of the things. Some people are like, okay, what were some of those? You know what? You're doing this deeper dive.
No, we're flowing with you, Pastor Brian. But where you were was good. But let's go. You started with one of the notes that I had was just the statement, what a net to break. And then after that, you shared how the net is a mentality.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. When that net broke, it was, like I say, it was something in the natural that created a response spiritually. And so, that's the parallel. And what a net to break, right? For them to receive Jesus, and say, man, that's the Messiah.
Right.
Right? Like, that net,
Oh, that's good.
that net breaking was symbolic of like a spiritual encounter.
Right.
It brought enrichment to their spiritual life. It furthered their belief. It grew their trust. It literally was necessary for the next step.
Right.
Why am I saying this? Because I had another thought this morning. And this thought is I've been, watching Dr. Dollar in the sessions he's been doing this week. And, and listening to him, I was like, man, it was like an altering to like prayer life is how I saw it. And I wrote it down, right? And
It's the Southwest Believers Conference.
right? But we've been on this journey about faith, right? And so I just had this thought, right? Just whenever I see something or in that moment, right? And that's what I'm seeing the parallel, right? When I know there's something that God is calling me to do, I believe 100%, and no one's ever going to be able to unconvince me of this ever. And it is that faith is a gift that God has given us. And God will give us the faith for what he wants for us to do. And like seeing that alignment, it really changed something in my prayer life that it was beautiful. So I'm going to share it now. But it was, and I wrote it down, right? I received the ability to believe this.
Yeah.
Like whenever there's something that God is bringing to me, man, I'm gotta calm down. I'm getting like emotional, right? But there's certain things, and going back to Pastor Deborah, she's like, you can't. They had a grasshopper mentality. They saw themselves as the grasshopper, so then they treated themselves as the grasshopper. And truth be told, there's things that God shares with us that they are designed to be bigger than us, because they necessitate everything God speaks necessitate his involvement to get done. But But what is our response in that moment? And God shared that with me, and I was like, God, that's it. I received the ability to believe this. Like, you're going to give me the ability to believe this. Like, I don't have it, but I know you can give me the gift of faith for what it is that you're saying I can have.
That's good.
I'm not going to try to work for it. I'm not going to try to strive for it. I believe that you'll break a net in my life that will give me the ability to believe this. And I'm saying that on Pastor Dollar because Pastor Dollar was just going up and down the aisles, just talking about self-righteousness and, man, basically in certain terms, who do you think you are? Mm-hmm. That's how I would have said it. Mm-hmm. But, he's definitely knows where he's at. Mm-hmm. And so, but anyway, everything that you are is because of what Jesus has done.
Right.
And so I was like, man, it just was so awesome to me because there's things in my life right now that they're far beyond Brian Poe, right? They're so far beyond Brian Poe. And I know that doubt is never the answer. Mm-hmm. And so I just await the gift to believe it.
That's
that
good.
God's gonna give me.
That's good.
Right? I'm not gonna try to do or try to cross a gap that I can't cross.
Right.
But I know that he'll give me the gift of faith. He'll give me the faith I need to believe what he's saying.
Yeah.
And because I don't want to be no grasshopper. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. I'm not gonna be no grasshopper. I'm not gonna see myself as small and then start to impute that smallness, thinking people see me the way I see myself. Mm-hmm. I see myself as fully capable of whatever God has called me to do. And I believe he'll also give me the faith to believe all that stuff too.
Yeah.
I feel a big whatever coming in, whatever. Pastor Dollar said something else too, that I felt so strong, I hate it. I hate a critical mindset. Mm-hmm. And I hate it because it takes so much to build ourselves up and it takes so much to get your strength in your legs that I just hate it. I openly tell people, like, before you say anything to somebody about somebody, first realize that maybe the Holy Spirit's been already talking to them about this all day and come with care.
That's good. Right.
Like, in most cases, you're just adding insult to injury.
Yeah.
And I say it that aggressively so people can be more cautious with how they say stuff to people because that's where the grasshopper mentality comes from.
That's good.
Right. You just, and when someone has seen this themselves as that, man, I was in an abusive situation. I'm not talking about like Rashida like that or relationally like that, but it was relationally, but it was abusive. And this is recent, right? And I didn't see it that way. And mainly because I don't see things that way, right? I just don't. And one of my close friends came and said, Brian, you're being taken advantage of. And I had to stop because which I love, because it's just, if I was not even, I just don't think that way.
Right.
I don't really care either, because, man, God is so good. It's it's irrelevant, right? It's irrelevant. And I sat there and I realized, like, shoot, you're right. And then I had to pause and realize, how did I get here? And I had realized that I had literally taken ownership of what had happened to the point I had accepted what had happened as though I deserved it.
Got it.
And I realized a leadership trait had literally turned on me. Because I will take responsibility. I'll just do it. So much so that even when I shouldn't, I take it. And I realized I had took it to the point of literally being taken advantage of because I kept seeing like, if I just, I've never, I was raised to never project onto other people in that way. What am I trying to say? Like,
That's good.
no, Brian, you guys heard my dad say, if you come in here, husband and wife, and you like, there's problems, it's your fault, right? You know? And so I was raised, I don't put,
Responsibility.
yes, I don't, and it's a little deeper than that because you'll start to, and that's what I realized you'll start to create a habit of literally containment if you practice the habit of always seeing what others should have did.
Yeah.
But I remain in a place of faith because I always see what I can do.
Yeah. Right.
So it's more faith than it is
Right.
like taking responsibility. It's more believing that if all 9 people fail, then God will give me the strength to make up for the 9 that did. Like it's more faith than responsibility is what I'm trying to say. Most people know I'll just take responsibility. It's not that. It's more a faith of what God can do because of what God wants to do.
Right.
That really gets me there. And I realized like, but that's not what this is. And so long story short, I'm saying all this to say it is actually a little easier to fall in that grasshopper mentality than we like to think it is. And I had realized that, man, like I had literally started to see myself as deserving of what was happening. And I'm saying this because this is Pastor Brian. Like and I was like, God, if I could slip over into this, how easy is it for people to slip over this? Like if I had to literally have a wake-up call,
Right.
how easy is it? And what I did was I realized I had made a bad decision, and I owned that. And I just was like, man, this is just the punishment for the decision I've made. And I was okay with that. And that's what's crazy. I was okay with it. And it was like 2 years. I was just like, whatever. Like that's what this is. But that's not what it is.
Right.
Right? That's not what it is at all. And I was like, man, I had started to literally like own it and be okay with being punished because of it. Like that is mind blowing to me. And I'm saying that because sometimes we look at, and I had to realize, and God just he started to preach to me because that's my healing. My healing is when I'm like, oh my God, when I can start to see how we can get trapped in the mindset. And God said, Brian, that same way you were in this is the same way someone could be in an abusive relationship and stay there.
Right.
You know, people from the outside are like, how did you just stay with him? How did you just stay with her? And God looked at me and said, Brian, how did you let this go on for 2 years? And I sat there and I realized, first of all, once again, we got to give each other some more love and credit. Once again, we all need to come down off these little mountaintops, get right here on level ground with each other, and not judge people because of where they are, not look down on them because of what they may be going through. Let me tell you something. It's easier than you think it is for you to start to internalize what you think that you should have to deal with because of stuff you think you've earned.
That's right.
Like it'll happen to the best of us. It happened to me, right? And so Pastor Dove was talking about that. I'm hearing all this, right? She started talking about limits based on our own perspective. All of this is, I'm like, yep.
Right.
Yep. And while she's saying yep, in my own self, I'm like, nets are just breaking in my life. Like they're just breaking. I'm like, nope. Nope. And like I say, next thing you know, I'm standing up on the stage, right?
Right.
And I'm like, this ain't just for me.
Yeah.
And I'll share this too. I was thinking about this on the right end. Like, God, do you want me to share this? And he was like, yeah, share it. And I'll never forget. And because maybe somebody's listening, and maybe this is where you are. And just another thing about that moment that I promised God, this is probably over 10 years ago. But over 10 years ago, I was speaking with Deacon Will, and God said this to me. He says, Brian, it's time for the wrong voice to stop being the loudest voice. And up to that moment, I can't tell you how many times I was in conversations that I knew the wrong thing was being said, and it was the loudest thing being said, and I knew what the right thing was, and I just sat silent. Like I did that people in this room could testify. I just would be silent, and I would be okay knowing that I knew better. And I just would just be silent, like just literally like, that person is so wrong. And I just would let it just ride. Like I don't know what was wrong with me, but I would. And God said it, and it was clear as day. And this was about 10 years ago. He says, Brian, if you're not going to say what's right, I'm going to stop telling you what's right. And I'll just tell somebody else. And I realized how much of a gift it was to even hear his voice.
Yeah.
And to have clarity about what he was saying. And from that moment, 10 years ago, that really, I know 5 years ago, I took the stage, but really 10 years ago in my life, I took the stage and just stop letting it happen. Like, just stop. Like, and that's what got me, like, Brian, and it wasn't like, people were like, that sounds like, it wasn't fear. Just God let me know that, man, he's going to have to move on. He's going to have to move on and share it with someone who's going to say it. Right?
Yeah.
It didn't feel threatening to me. It just felt like, you're right. Like, this one thing that my dad always told me, he says, Brian, you always know who the leader is through observation. It's through observation. He says, Brian, it doesn't matter who we give the title to. It doesn't matter who we think has earned it. God speaks to who he called to lead it.
Yeah.
And so you got to keep listening. Because you got to keep listening. Because we'll respect titles.
Right.
But God doesn't. God's not going to. If we walked into this room, I just want to give like a real example, right? It makes it a little simpler, right? Let's say Pastor Lamar is the director of Embracing Legacy, or even simpler, he's the senior pastor of Revealing Truth Ministry St. Pete. Here's the thing about that: someone can walk in the room and be like, I believe God has called me to be the senior pastor of Revealing Truth Ministry St. Pete, and start saying all types of stuff. But at the end of the day, God is only talking to who he called. And if we just observe, then you'll notice.
Yeah.
And it could be a simple question. Just walk over to that person. Like, hey, so what's the vision of this church? I don't know, but I got a word from God.
Right.
Well, I walk over to Pastor Mark. Pastor Mark, what's the vision for the church? This is what God has shown me. Right? It's just that simple. Now, of course, I'm saying it this way, but there's many times where we had to change leadership because we realized we picked the wrong person. Meanwhile, God is talking to this individual over here. They just keep coming with just more and more and more and more. And we realize, because God's not going to respect who we called the leader. Like, he's not going to be like, well, they said he the leader. God's not looking down saying, well, they called them the leader, so let me stop talking to who I think is the leader and start talking to who they said is the leader. Like, God ain't doing that. God going to keep talking to who he called. And so that's what my dad says, Brian, it's about observation. Just observe. Don't be impatient. God will talk to who he wants to lead it. And who he wants to lead it, they should be talking. And if they're not willing to talk, then they're not willing to lead. And it's hand in hand. And a lot of people are like, man, why haven't they? I have so many great ideas. Have you spoken any of these great ideas that you got? Because a part of being a leader is being willing to speak it in and out of season. And so that was like, just observe, be patient and observe. And they are really, people think that he was appointing people, and they didn't realize they was appointing themselves. Why? First, from hearing from God, then secondly, being willing to speak about it. Leader.
Yeah.
It's just that easy.
You're right.
People are like, I'm just waiting to be called. Are you speaking where you are? Are you speaking where you are? Are you saying what thus says the Lord where you are? Nah. Well, shoot. Work on that.
That's it.
Right? Oh, man, why I'm over here.
That was good. No. I think you just gave us a picture of what was talked about on Sunday. And I was thinking about the scripture that Pastor Deborah shared from 1 Corinthians chapter 2. Yeah. And it says, but it was to us that God revealed these things by his Spirit. It was to us. You talk about hearing from God is a gift. Believing what he said to you is a gift. It's not in our own strength or our own ability. Yeah. It is the gift of God. So,
and we've been going this way, right?
Describing that.
We kind of sat around the table. It wasn't a literal table. That's what I called church. But, and we just drew a line saying we have to be taught by God.
That's right.
There are things that are the fruit of revelation. And we've been really progressing on that same thing. And Pastor Deborah, like say on Sunday, just went off, in the way she does. It didn't sound like she was going off, but in my heart, she was just going off, right? She was very peacefully. She's very peacefully. Like even this morning, she's not here which I was like, man, I got so many things are on time. She's not here this morning because she's in the emergency room with somebody, right? And she didn't know that, but that's where she is. And so here I am. But it's with such grace and peace, right? Like, that it's like, oh no, she's just sharing her testimony. And I want people to recognize you never heard her crying about it once. Not once. You guys have been observing her preaching and teaching during that whole journey.
Right.
Did you ever see her weak?
No.
Did you ever see her just crying and putting on a show, like putting on this show, and people be putting on shows? You didn't see it. And think about that. Right? Think about that. But to me, she never saw herself as not healed. She never saw herself as a grasshopper.
That's good.
None of those things she and that's the way it's supposed to look. That's the way it's supposed to look. And and she just stands up there so gracefully. It's like, no, I'm not doing that. No, that's not the way I've been living my life. Like just like, and I'm telling you, it's just that casual. Like but it's not careless.
Right. That's good.
But she's like, I'm not taking this. That's not the way I live my life, period. Y'all like, oh, y'all don't know what's going on? Oh, fine. She didn't call us around for no family prayer and be like, let's all present this before the Lord. Like it wasn't. Come on, man.
That's good.
Like all this while caring for her mother, right? Like I could go on and on about my mama, but I'm just simply saying it's an incredible example.
Yeah.
Of what it's like when you've received the gift to believe. And you don't feel like there's anything that you're conjuring up in your own efforts to make God do anything.
Yes.
Like it's beautiful. It's graceful. It's peaceful.
Let me read this too.
Yeah.
This is verse 12. 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 12. And we have received God's Spirit, not the world's spirit, so we can know the wonderful things God has freely given to
us. And I think
Yeah.
that that's just so fitting because, one, the Lord wants us to know. And the testimonies we heard on Sunday and what you just shared in this session shows how wonderful it is that God would give us that type of insight into where He is, His heart, and how He sees us. And good, we're better for it. We're better for it. So, thank you, sir. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Pastor Lamar.
I encourage you all to just continue to stay tuned in. You don't have to, even if you were in service on Sunday or you listen to the service on Sunday, you don't have to listen to it once. You can go back and listen to it as many times as you need to digest the things that God is saying to us. Summer of Stability is here. We've heard about it. We've been talking about it for a while. It is here. Yeah. The first session starts this Sunday. There's a marriage class that starts at 7:30 here at the Tampa campus, and every week until September. 6 weeks. SOS is 6 weeks, so we're taking it into the month of September. You can find more information on the app. Stay tuned to the announcements in service to get more information so you can plug in to SOS. I'm looking forward to seeing you there. This is a great day. It's a great Thursday. Keep enjoying it all throughout it. Continue to be people who are most blessed. We look forward to seeing you this weekend. Until then, we love you. See you soon.